I just finished reading the ninth Indiana Jones novel by Bantam Books. This was Indiana Jones and the Philosopher's Stone by Max McCoy, written in 1995. And I'd heard so many good things about this book. It was like, this is one of the best. This is like a must read. Max McCoy knows Indiana Jones. He writes it like the films. It's one of the best books. It's a return to form from the last two, which were written by Martin Caden, which many people didn't like. So I went into this book with high expectations, really looking forward to it, thinking this is going to be the absolute best of the books so far. And don't forget, we're the ninth book in. So I thought I was going to think, oh my God, this is the absolute best. But to be honest, it was okay. I wouldn't say I was disappointed. Um, Not at all. I enjoyed it. It was good. It was okay, but it was nowhere near as good as my expectations thought it would be. It was your standard Indiana Jones adventure. All the elements were there that you'd expect from an Indiana Jones adventure, which could argue were missing from the previous books. By the first six were done by Rob McGregor, and the previous two were written by Martin Caden. So it had just standard indie stuff, and pretty much followed the formula of Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. There was an obvious parallel there in terms of the story. So you had like your opening prologue action sequence. There will be spoilers in this review, by the way. So if you've never read it or you're not bothered about spoilers, this is just your warning right now. Um, so it had the opening prologue, which Indy is in South America in these Mayan ruins, searching for, funnily enough, a crystal skull, and he battles the turns out to be the main bad guys of the entire novel, actually Italians, but he also battles a giant anaconda on his escape, which was a pretty cool action sequence. Then he goes back to New York or is to his university. You have the briefing of the artifact. In this case, it was a manuscript which leads to the Philosopher's Stone, said to grant the beholder the ability to turn any metal or lead into gold and grant immortality or prolong your life. And then you've got the bad guys trying to find the artifact, and Indy's on the trail. He's hired by the government. Marcus Brody is in the introduction. Just your standard Raiders stuff, and then the quest begins. A few action set pieces. There was an awesome sort of moment when he has to run to get on a Zeppelin that's to get across the Atlantic to London, but it's taken off and he's missed it. So he literally runs, grabs the mooring ropes, and is hanging on for dear life, and has to climb up. He drops his luggage, pulls his hat down, and people on the Zeppelin or the US military, they're like, "Oh my God, what the hell's this guy doing?" And they pull him aboard. And there's another great action sequence set on the Zeppelin, which again is like feels like your standard Indiana Jones stuff. Um, and then it's a globe-trotting adventure. There was plenty of that. So it starts off in South America, goes to North America, London, Rome, Libya, and then in the desert, which obviously feels like your classic Raiders or Last Crusade for the last section of the book. Now, on the main cover of the book, it has a picture of Sallah. So you think, oh my God, Salah's going to be in this story, which we haven't seen him in all of the previous books before this. So this being a prequel series, I assumed it was going to be like meeting Salah for the first time, introducing the character, or a little origin story of how they became friends. But no, he just sort of, Indy just says, you can go back and wait with my friend Salah. He'll take care of you, to the female character in the book, to the love interest. And then Salah comes in mid-action sequence bringing reinforcements to help save India, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, right. Once I heard what was happened, I thought you'd need me help, so I came straight away." And they're like, "Oh, my good friend." So they already kind of know each other, so there's no sort of backstory of how they met or anything like that, which was a little bit disappointing, I suppose. And he only turns up. it's like a 280-page book. I'd say he only turns up in like 110, I could be wrong, 100, 110, 120 pages in. So he only turns up for pretty much like the last section of the novel, which was a little bit disappointing. I was hoping he would be throughout the novel, but that wasn't the case. There's a great sort of action sequence, like a chase in the desert, which gives you Last Crusade vibes. To basically, the villains in this novel are the fascist Italians, um, obviously under the control of Mussolini. They're after this Philosopher's Stone for whatever powers it may or may not possess. Um, there's like a great chase in the desert to the location of the Philosopher's Stone, and then it's very much all Last Crusade. Um, they find this oasis in the desert, and Indy has to swim down to the bottom of this pool in this oasis, and the entrance to the tomb is in there, and then it's like a series of trials and traps and booby traps that he has to navigate, which is really cool. It's really engaging. Um, and then they find the artifact, but then parallel to Last Crusade, like the Walter Donovan equivalent character, the main villain of the story comes in, takes the artifact, they reach the surface, and then things don't really turn out the way that everyone hoped. Um, I won't spoil this part, but it doesn't work out so well for the villains. And then they like, in classic Indy form, they have to like get rid of the artifact so that it doesn't be taken back to the museum. It's put back in its place basically because it's too dangerous. That's the case. And then they're just like, oh yeah, like I'm going to tell the government that I couldn't get it and we've reburied it so nobody can get to it. Like because it's so dangerous, like what it does. Indy never actually witnessed what happened to the bad guys. They just kind of like disappeared because he was held captive in the back of a truck. So, it, and then one of the characters goes back into the tomb and self-sacrifices himself and buries it. And then Indy returns to his university and speaks for Marcus. And so, yeah, I didn't get the artifact. And then throughout the novel, so at the beginning, there's this whole prologue about this crystal skull, and Indy loses it, and it goes into the possession of the bad guys. And then it's seen again throughout the novel. And I believe it's a story arc in these last four novels by Max McCoy. It's a running story arc about this crystal skull and does he get it or doesn't he get it? Because I actually don't, at this point doing this review, I don't actually own the next book yet, which is the Dinosaur Eggs, but I own Indiana Jones and the Hollow Earth and the Secret of the Sphinx, which is the last two books. So I was going to skip straight to Hollow Earth and just finish the series, but I'm going to wait till I get Dinosaur Eggs and read that first. I'm going to read them all in order because of this subplot that I've learned about this crystal skull that happens in all four of these Max McCoy books. So yeah, Indiana Jones and Philosopher's Stone it was a good read. It was a very fast read. It's a very thin book compared to some of the others. Like the Martin Caden books were reaching like over 350 pages. This is like 280. I think I finished it in like 3 or 4 days because the chapters are so long. Some of the chapters in this book are like 30 or 40 pages long. So like if you're like me and want to read a chapter at a time, you're gonna get through it quite quickly because they're like 30 or 40 pages long. So it's a very fast paced book. As I say, I read it in 3 or 4 days once I actually sat down and just read it. I enjoyed it a lot, but I have to say I do enjoy some of the Rob McGregor books a lot more, being Indiana Jones and the Genesis Deluge. I think that was much better than this book, and also Indiana Jones and the Unicorn's Legacy and Indiana Jones and the Interior World. I enjoyed them, I've got to say, a lot more than this book. And as much as the fans hate the two Martin Caden books, I actually really enjoyed The White Witch and The Sky Pirates. I read them very quickly. I really enjoyed them books. I've enjoyed all of them in their own way. I was just a little bit let down by the hype I had for this Philosopher's Stone from the good things that I heard before reading it. Um, but it was fine. It was good. It was okay. You just your bog standard indie adventure. All the elements are there now. You know, the character's written very well, probably better than the Rob McGregor books. The character of Indiana Jones is written as you see him in the films. Like it's that good, that well written. Sallah is pretty much written how you'd expect in the films. You know, you can see John Rhys Davies, you can imagine his accent, you know, you can see him there as the character. He's written as the character should be. There's a lot of great action sequences, but you know, just your typical bog standard indie adventure. Um, so not too bad. There was some kind of random things thrown in that were a little bit jarring, and you were like, "What? Like, where did this come from?" Like, there's a sequence where Indy and the female character Alicia are running away from the bad guy in this museum. They jump out the window, land on the street, and then this limousine or this car turns up and throws the door open and is like, "Get in quickly." And at that point, I thought it was Sallah coming to the rescue, like somebody had sent Sallah to rescue them. But no, it wasn't. It was this old man called Nicholas and this older lady that is kind of implied that they are Nicholas Flamel, who created the Philosopher's Stone, but it's never sort of confirmed or anything, and they're never seen again. It was just kind of jarring, and then they save them, drive them off to the next location, and then they're never seen again, never mentioned again. So it was pretty random in that respect. But yeah, Indiana Jones and the Philosopher's Stone is a good start for the Max McCoy books. I can't wait to start the next one, which is Indiana Jones and the Dinosaur Eggs. And then there's two more to go in the original Bantam series. There's Indiana Jones and the Hollow Earth, and then The Secret of the Sphinx, which again I've heard many good things about that book, but I will try this time to not get my expectations up too high, and I will try not to hype it up too much. And then I was gonna not gonna read Indiana Jones and the Army of the Dead, which was written many years later when the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, but just for sheer completion anxiety, I'm going to finish all these Bantam novels, and then I will read Indiana Jones and the Army of the Dead just to get an overall like opinion and just the knowledge that I've read all the books of the Indiana Jones series because they've not been given the same treatment as Star Wars. There's not as many indie novels as there is Star Wars, which I wish there was because there's countless adventures that Indy could go on. So yeah, Indiana Jones and the Philosopher's Stone, I will give 5 or 6 out of 10.